as my guru put it in his great book, Autobiography of a Yogi, he said, even the atom is dowered with individuality. Now that atom, with that individual consciousness, must evolve gradually. And it is said nowadays, people in their blindness think that someday computers will become complex enough and intelligent enough to be able to be conscious and to be able to, they even have talked of someday having to have computer rights. It's so funny when you think of that. What could be simpler than a worm? And yet if you prick a worm with a pin, it'll wriggle away. It feels and it thinks, I have to protect myself. Those two things science will never be able to produce. Feeling and self-consciousness. These are the essence. Intelligence is not the essence. You can get a computer that can be more intelligent than man, but it is not conscious. It has no feeling. We must realize that this essence, this is why when Patanjali gave his definition of yoga in his Yoga Sutras, he said, Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the neutralization of the waves or vortices, really, of chitta or feeling. So your feeling element is the essence of your reality. And this battle of Kurukshetra is the rising, it begins with the rising of the soul in feeling. The worm feels, but it can't clearly define. The insects feel, they feel enough, but they don't clearly define. When you reach the animals, they become conscious and a little bit self-conscious. I remember when I was a boy in Romania. I grew up there, I was born there. And we had a little dog called Jasper. He was a little Scottish Terrier. And one time my brother, Bob, went out with this terrier, a Scotch Terrier, and the pound people came and they saw this dog, and they thought they could take that dog to the pound and keep it for a ransom to get some money out of it. And so they tried to catch him in a net, and my brother Bob held their net like this, and he'd, "Run, Jasper, run!" And so Jasper ran. And at a certain point, when the pursuers were out of sight, he hid behind a bush, and then they went charging past him. He came trotting home, and every time we were very proud of him for his intelligence, and every time when we talked about this episode of his very proudly, he might be sitting under a table, but as soon as we began talking about it, he went, he knew what we were talking about. He knew that we were talking about him. You see, there's some ego there in the animals too. Of course there is. Not just the self-protection of a worm, but more than that. A sense of this body is mine to protect, and he was aware enough to know. But it's only at man that the ego level really begins to come into play.